couple of steps that I'm really excited to work on with you guys. So the first thing you're gonna want to do is just grab a ruler, or if you don't have a ruler handy, just a piece of paper. Anything with a straight edge is going to be good. And all you need to do is just start drawing gentle lines, just light lines like this. This one might be so light you can't see it. I'll draw mine a little darker so that you can see what I'm doing. But what we're going for is this sort of stained glass effect. So as you go, just be conscientious of where your lines are ending up. I like to try and make sort of a lot of triangles of varying sizes next to each other, like this, places where they all cross over and meet. But you don't want to have anything that's too small, because it might end up being confusing to look at. But as you go, just as always, focus on being really aware of what you're doing, the motion of your hand as you move it from one part of the page to another. It's a really relaxing feeling, especially with a ruler, with even just any straight edge. It can be really satisfying to look at these nice, clean lines you're making. So I have a lot on the bottom here. Let's add a little bit more on the top to even it out. And then before we shade these in, we're gonna create a pattern on top of them. Should be a pretty cool effect. But yeah, this is something that you can do with your pencils, or with whatever you have. But it's something also that I've done before with tape, if you have tape, to lay down on a piece of paper and then paint over it. When you peel it away, you'll get this fun stained glass effect with lots of little lines, little triangles and things. Let's see. There we go. That should be enough to get us started. So now that you have sort of this general pattern, it looks kind of like a spider web or something. What I want you to do is to draw over it. And I'm going to draw a big eye shape that goes from corner to corner on my paper. You can, if you want to do a different shape, you can. You can use your hand and sort of make an outline, something like that. But we're just going to draw just a nice, gentle curve, which has an interesting visual effect. I feel like it really stands out with all these other straight lines. And then just do one to match it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can see mine has a little wobble right there. But we're just going for kind of a stylized eye shape. We're not really going for realistic here. So, and then of course, you want to have that iris in the center of the eye. There we go. So now we have our base lines. And so now we're going to go for the colored pencils. If you don't have colored pencils, you can just keep using your pencil to shade things in different ways. Or if you have some other color, if you have paints that you feel like using, go ahead and feel free. That'll probably look really cool. I'm just going to sort of take a couple of colors at random. Let's go for some warm colors to start with. And so now that we have these lines, what I'm going to do is take my pencil and draw a smaller shape inside the lines. And we don't need to use the ruler anymore, because again, we're not really going for perfect, especially with stained glass. I feel like they often have these sort of wobbly edges to them. I feel like that's part of the charm. So these straight lines we're just using as guides. So just draw a smaller shape inside of them. And the reason that we're doing that is just so that there's some space in between each shape so that they're sort of distinct. And then just fill it in one color very simply. And we're working fast here because we're filling a whole paper here. But if you're drawing this smaller, you can take your time and really pick and choose where you want to place your different shapes, your different colors. Yeah, I thought this would be something nice to draw today because stained glass often reminds me of a kaleidoscope or something that shifts your perspective of what you're seeing to be more colorful, because of course normally these things they're windows, so you can kind of see the world through them, but it's changed, it's different, it's a shift in perspective. And I think paying attention to your perspective right now is really, really important. You know, making sure, not necessarily ignoring anything that's going on or denying it, but looking for a kind of balance of, you know, welcoming and positive things that you can find throughout your day, that you can notice and pay attention to and acknowledge just as you give energy to everything else. I think that's a really helpful and important way to keep yourself going and to keep yourself sort of actively positive in your day-to-day life. For me, that helps to give me more energy and make me want to, you know, keep connecting with people, keep doing more good, keep looking for this color and this beauty in the world.
Hi, Lainey. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is there any way you could use like a darker marker to go over your straight lines? It's just a little hard to see with the camera.
Yeah, of course. Let me grab just a darker pen here.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Here, let's go over some of these guidelines again real quick. I know they're probably tricky to see here. I think that's more visible. Is that better?
Yes, it's better.
Great. Let's do a couple more of these. I want to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. And then I'm using a pencil here so I can go over and erase it at the end. But it also might look kind of cool if you fill it in, these gaps between the shapes. It might kind of look like that tar that, or whatever it is that they use to fill in between the panes of glass in stained glass. I don't know what they use really, but it does give a nice contrast. The dark color that binds these things together, and then the really bright glowing colors in the window. I'm just going to fill in the ones that are inside the eye for now, and then as we go outside the eye, we can fill in more of them. So there you go. Now maybe you have a better idea of what we're working with here. So let's go ahead and fill in the rest of this yellow guy. And you can see I'm sort of going from all directions because it's not, you don't really need to have like a super even, clean shade here. We're just having fun. So let's do one more triangle of this color and then we'll maybe pick another color. But as you can see, you sort of have this circle shape here. And so what it's going to end up looking like as we fill in this iris but don't fill in the whites of the eyes, then fill in the outside, you're going to end up with this effect of like reflecting the world in this bright, positive way, which I really like. I think is cool. All right, let's go for, how about an orange? I'm thinking maybe you can use like you can do a lot of different things with how you arrange these patterns as well. I think what I'm going to end up doing is using mostly warm colors on the inside of the iris and then using cooler colors on the outside, both of which are beautiful in their own ways, but it'll just create that extra little bit of contrast here. You can also do the reverse of that, where you can use one color on the outside and lots of colors on the inside, or vice versa. You know, get creative with it. Think about what you want to communicate with your version of this drawing. Because again, this is all about perspective. And your perspective is really valuable. So I'm going right to the edge of the circle, probably because it's in blue, it's a little harder for you to see, but just follow that curve of the iris when you get to the edge there. And then, yeah, as you can see, we're sort of filling in. We have these very warm colors. And another thing you can do if you want to not have the whole thing filled with color is you can do outlines in some of the areas instead of filling them in completely. You can just outline it with the color like this. But I think I'm going to try and fill them all in. We'll see. I might just do outlines on the outside larger shapes, depending. As you fill this in, think about things in your life that this might represent. You know, what small, beautiful things do you notice every day? Do you have a pet that gets excited in the morning to see you? Or maybe just when it's dinner time. Do you have a beautiful backyard or just a nice view from an apartment? Things that you enjoy seeing every day, or a favorite time of day? Or even just like the good weather right now, which is something that I'm really enjoying, this warmth. It makes it a little easier to have some get up and go. Just knowing that you don't have to bundle up several layers to get started with your day. Let's do maybe one more yellow, and then maybe we'll add some more pink. Some of these little crevices. But yeah, the next time you see one of those things that you really appreciate and make you happy, try to internalize that. Try to take a mental snapshot of that moment and say, wow, this is something that I can look at and enjoy. It's right in front of me every day, or maybe just sometimes. Those are all pieces of the world that we have. And I think it's extremely important to appreciate them no matter what. Not just out of an obligation to feel gratitude, but because it truly is an amazing thing that there's always something to look out and appreciate. Or maybe look inward. something that you appreciate about yourself. Let's throw some red in there, get some drama. As you can see, your eye is almost done. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna outline this, and we're not gonna add any eyelashes just because it's very, it's a very stylized eye, and that might detract from it. You can add some if you want. You can add as much detail as you want, actually, because this technique doesn't really depend on it being stylized, but for our purposes, I think simpler is easier to work together on. Yeah. I like that red. It's fun. And again, you know, I'm going to advise that you do what I always say you should do while we're drawing and coloring like this, which is just to really notice and really listen to what you're doing. Listen to the sound of the pen or the pencil on the paper. Pay attention to the feel of the paper under your hands, the motion of your hand as you move along. All of these things are really just really pleasant experiences, and they also help you to ground in this moment and say, wow, here I am. And isn't it a special thing to be making something lovely with all these other people? Isn't it so special that we've come together and we're all doing this at the same time? I don't know, I think it's really special. Alrighty, I'm gonna get the last piece of our eyeball filled in. I'm gonna go over this line that I drew, this big curved line. So if you can't see it, you're about to be able to. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to have a really even curved line, because I think when something is imperfect or just unique, it makes it more special, more memorable too. It makes it yours. So hopefully now you can see here's our top lid, and then we're just gonna do the same thing on the bottom. If you do want to have an even line, one thing that can help is to sort of move your whole arm as you're drawing this line. And if you need to, tilt the paper. Remember that you can do that. You know, it's not glued to the table. Just as you can shift your perspective, you can also shift your paper. Maybe that's a stretch of the metaphor, a little too much, but there you have it. And then, so there's our eye. We have it all set up. And then just real quickly, let's take some of our cooler colors. I'm gonna grab a dark blue, a light blue, maybe some greens. And I'm just gonna outline these outer shapes. So for those of you who are having a little trouble seeing the outer ones, I'm gonna try and press down really hard so that you can start to see it come all together. But again, your lines don't have to look anything like mine. You just use a ruler to sort of randomly create these shapes in this pattern. Because the point really isn't accuracy, it's just the overall effect of sort of this fractal image. This fragmented kaleidoscope of color. And as you can see, I'm not closing these shapes as I reach the edge of the paper because I want to give the sense that the world sort of goes beyond what we're representing here as well, which I think is an important thing to remember, even as you can see and notice and focus in on moments of beauty or moments in general, there's always more to see as well. There's no such thing as knowing everything. And that's a good thing. I think it's a very encouraging thought. And again, when you reach the edge of the eye, just leave yourself a little space and follow that curve instead of creating another straight line. Or alternately, you can do the same thing that you're doing here. If you want to make it look like these shapes are going behind the eye, you can leave just sort of an open end in your shape, like I did there. It's up to you. I'm going to close that. I don't know why. I guess just because I already did. This part, because you're not filling in, if you're not filling in, you can do this kind of quickly. Don't overthink it. You're not representing any specific thing in the real world, so it doesn't need to be a perfect shape. And you also don't have to fill in all of these if you don't want to. If you want to create a sense of composition and have more of these colors going inwards or outwards, or only have them on one side, those are decisions you can also make depending on how you want the finished product to look. And I think those are fun decisions you get to make as an artist, because it changes the overall message of what you're making, or at least the feeling that it gives to others or gives to you. Yeah. Making this is just a little reminder for you that, the world is a really complicated place, but you can always find things to look at that break down into something beautiful. For me, a lot of the time, that's the time here with you. I think it's really special that people are coming together to be creative or teach each other new things and just connect. It really fills me with wonder and a lot of happiness. And I hope it brings you that too. Thank you, Patty. I'm glad. It's therapeutic for me too. And then as a final step, if you have any underdrawing, which I'm not sure you can see here on my paper, but you can go ahead and clean up those lines a little bit. Or you can leave them if you want to have the sense of connection between the inner and outer shapes. But yeah, this is just a simple project that you can do really anytime you have a little time on your hands and you want to make something that both makes you feel good and reminds you how much other stuff there is. I was trying to think of a better word than stuff, but how much other stuff there is that will also make you feel good and how much there is to appreciate. Always a good reminder. Not only to be present, but to be grateful. And there you go. You've made something wonderful. And like I said earlier, you can use any number of materials to create this same effect if you ever want to take it in a different direction. You can definitely do that. Whether with watercolor paints or acrylic, or I don't know, if you're really fancy and you have oils, which I don't, you can give that a shot. The same sort of geometric effect. There you go.